Well, the contested Nagorno-Karabakh region is at the heart of a years-long standoff between the neighbours. It's internationally recognised as part of Azerbaijan, but 95% of the population is ethnic Armenian. Conflict first broke out in 1988, when it was under Soviet rule. Nagorno-Karabakh declared independence and tried to unite with Armenia. As the Soviet Union collapsed, it escalated into outright war. When the fighting ended in 1994, Armenian forces controlled the area and other nearby districts. Full-scale war started again in 2020. After 6 weeks of fighting, Azerbaijan regained much of the territory. A Russian peacekeeping force was deployed to enforce the ceasefire, but fighting still breaks out periodically. Matthew Bryzer is a former mediator in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and a former American ambassador to Azerbaijan. He's in Istanbul and joins us now live. Good to have you with us, Matthew. What is Nancy Pelosi doing there? Is she helping or hindering the situation?
Adrian, thanks so much for having me with you. Well, you know, it depends on your perspective. I mean, if you're an Armenian American, she's there helping because the Armenian American community, by and large, agrees with the opposition, political opposition in Armenia, which is that the ceasefire sort of agreement signed by Prime Minister Pashinyan should be revised, that Armenia should back out of it and should not agree for Armenian troops to leave Nagorno-Karabakh, I mean, those that are remaining there, until Azerbaijan agrees to the possibility of changing the legal status of Karabakh to either independence or part of Armenia. The Azerbaijani side says that's not fair. The possibility of a negotiated settlement of the conflict that would lead to a change in the legal status of Nagorno-Karabakh had been, you know, in theory, agreed by the leadership of Armenia and Azerbaijan, but that's off the table after the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, in which Azerbaijan prevailed. So if you're looking at it from the Azerbaijani perspective, it's very unhelpful. From a U.S. perspective, the U.S. is supposed to be an objective mediator and not choose either side.
I wanted to ask, what is it to do with the U.S.? And is Pelosi's visit officially sanctioned by the Biden administration, or is it more to do with the optics here? It's designed for a domestic audience.
Yeah, I think it's overwhelmingly about the domestic audience. I mean, of course, remember that in November we have these midterm congressional or parliamentary elections, which will really have a huge impact on determining the future political orientation of the United States and even the future of Joe Biden. The Biden administration and Secretary of State Blinken, they very much, based on my analysis, want to try to continue the U.S. role as an objective mediator. And Secretary Blinken has been on the phone many times with President Aliyev of Azerbaijan and with counterparts in Armenia. So I think maybe what Speaker Pelosi is doing is similar to her trip to Taiwan a few weeks ago, where the Biden administration was not happy with her going to one side of the conflict, thinking that would raise tensions. But what the heck, she's number 3 in line for the presidency, or number 2 after the vice president, should, God forbid, the U.S. president become incapacitated. She's underscoring that the legislative branch is an independent branch of the United States government. So her presence in Yerevan really doesn't say anything about the president of the United States' take on the conflict. It's her independent view.
Matthew, as we said, you were a former mediator in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. What's your view on this latest flare-up in violence?
I think, first of all, it's almost meaningless to try to define who shot first, because both sides have been skirmishing for months along the international border between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which needs to be defined or demarcated, and which the Prime Minister of Armenia and the President of Azerbaijan have pledged to do. They have also pledged to negotiate a full peace treaty, which would, I think, put to bed forever the question of whether Nagorno-Karabakh's legal status is going to change. And so Prime Minister Pashinyan's political opponents, the former regime, if you will, they want to revise that agreement, as I said. They don't want the status of Nagorno-Karabakh to be prevented from changing. So they have an incentive in keeping the conflict going. But there are also people on the Azerbaijani side who are quite impatient with what they view as Armenia's failure to implement the various agreements that came after the second Nagorno-Karabakh war. One of them being, the most important one being, that Azerbaijan and Armenia would cooperate to build infrastructure projects, especially roads, that could link Azerbaijan with Armenia and Turkey with Armenia and get on with the integration of Armenia into the regional economy. Those opponents of Prime Minister Pashinyan don't want that to happen. And to me, that's to the detriment of Armenia and the people of Armenia who need jobs, they need investment, they need regional economic cooperation.
Always good to talk to you, Matthew. Many thanks indeed for being with us again. Matthew Breiser there in Istanbul.